At 11 o'clock on the night of May 8, 1945, the guns stopped in western Latvia. Berlin had already been in Soviet hands for 6 days. Germany had signed unconditional surrender, and yet, across a front roughly 137 miles long, 2 German armies were still standing in formation. They had not been destroyed. They had not been driven into the Baltic. They were ordered to stop. When Soviet troops finished counting the prisoners from Courland, the total reached 189,112 men. 42 were generals. More than 8,000 were officers. The line they surrendered had held for 211 days. The easy explanation is that Courland was a fortress that could not be broken. The more disturbing truth is that it was an army Germany could have moved, but Hitler refused to let it leave. To understand why almost 200,000 trained troops were still trapped in Latvia after Berlin fell, the story has to begin far from Latvia. In the summer of 1944, the Soviet destruction of Army Group Center in Belarus tore open the German Eastern Front. Army Group North was still holding Estonia and Latvia, but its southern flank was suddenly hanging in the air. Everything depended on one narrowing corridor running southwest toward East Prussia. That corridor was the only land connection between Army Group North and Germany. On July 30, Soviet forces reached the Gulf of Riga near Tukums. The corridor snapped. For the first time, Army Group North was cut off. But that first isolation did not last. In August, Germany launched Operation Doppelkopf. 2 Panzer Corps, including the 7th and 14th Panzer Divisions and the Grossdeutschland Panzer Grenadier Division, attacked toward Tukums. Within 12 days, they reopened contact. By August 27, a land bridge roughly 18 miles wide connected Army Group North to the rest of the front again. The operation failed to achieve its larger goals. Silesia was not retaken. The Soviet forces threatening Riga were not destroyed, and the corridor remained thin, exposed, and vulnerable. But Doppelkopf proved something critical. The connection could be cut, and it could be restored. Germany had just spent 2 armored corps to prove it. 6 weeks later, the corridor would be cut again. This time, no comparable rescue would come. Before that happened, Germany made one last attempt to widen the land bridge. Operation Caesar opened in mid-September. Its purpose was to secure the corridor and crush the Soviet salient south of Riga. The attack moved only a few miles before it stalled. By September 19, it was over. The corridor was still narrow. The Soviet pressure was still growing. And Caesar became the last German offensive intended to keep Army Group North connected to Germany by land. From that point on, the story changed. The question was no longer whether the corridor could be held. It was whether Army Group North would be withdrawn before the corridor disappeared. It was not. While the southern connection weakened, German forces evacuated mainland Estonia in Operation Aster. Tallinn fell on September 22. Units that had escaped Estonia moved south into Latvia, adding more troops to a position already approaching isolation. Then Soviet General Ivan Bagramian prepared the decisive blow. He made German command believe the main attack would continue toward Riga. German reserves shifted to protect the city. Bagramian struck west toward the Baltic instead. On October 5, the Memel offensive opened across a 60-mile front. The initial Soviet attack hit a weak sector of the German 3rd Panzer Army. 4 days later, Soviet forces reached the Baltic coast on both sides of Memel. The land connection between Army Group North and East Prussia was gone. Gone for good. The first time the corridor closed, Germany attacked with 2 Panzer Corps and tore it open. The second time, the German formation that had led those counteroffensives was itself being driven back. There was no force left south of the gap to attack north. There was no reserve north of the gap strong enough to attack south. Riga fell on October 13. The German 18th Army withdrew into the Courland Peninsula. Behind it, bridges were demolished and the front compressed into a coastal pocket running from Tukums in the northeast to Liepaja in the southwest. The Baltic Sea lay to the west. The Gulf of Riga lay to the east. The Red Army stood across the base of the peninsula. Inside were the 16th and 18th Armies. The exact divisional count changed over time, but the fighting force was approximately 200,000 men. They had ports. They had a sea route to Germany. What they no longer had was a land route out. The terrain made Courland difficult to conquer. It was low, wet country. Forests, swamps, rivers, flooded shell holes, and waterlogged trenches restricted movement. Armored formations could not spread out easily. German defenders built belts of mines, barbed wire, anti-tank ditches, and registered gun positions across narrow approaches. A peninsula could not be outflanked. Every Soviet attack had to enter through the front, and the front had been prepared. That explains why the pocket held. It does not explain why the pocket remained. The military case for evacuation was obvious. The force was isolated. It could be supplied only by sea. It held no route into Germany. And while those two armies remained in Latvia, East Prussia, Pomerania, and Silesia were being invaded without them. General Heinz Guderian repeatedly argued that the troops should be withdrawn. Hitler refused. His main justification centered on the Baltic. Germany's new Type X-1 U-boats were supposed to revive the submarine war. The Baltic contained the remaining training areas needed for their crews. Holding Courland, Hitler believed, helped protect those waters. There was also a political argument. A German army on former Soviet territory forced Moscow to leave troops in Latvia. It preserved a German presence in the east even as every meaningful front moved west. On paper, those arguments sounded strategic. In practice, the arithmetic was brutal. The Soviet forces tied to Courland were not the forces deciding the battle for Berlin. The German divisions trapped in Courland were not defending the Reich. They were defending the idea that Courland might still matter, and the evidence that evacuation was possible kept accumulating. Memel had been cut off by land in October just as Courland had. It remained supplied by sea for months. Then, in January 1945, when the bridgehead no longer served a purpose, Hitler authorized its evacuation. German troops left by ship and moved back into the collapsing German order of battle. Memel proved that a Baltic bridgehead could be abandoned when the order was given. Courland received no such order. Later that same month, Hitler allowed 7 divisions to be removed from Courland. They sailed through Liepāja and Ventspils. Among them were armored and infantry formations urgently needed farther west. The ships existed. The ports worked. The sea lane functioned. The removal of 7 divisions demonstrated that the problem was not capability. It was permission. Heinrich von Vietinghoff, during his brief period commanding the pocket, prepared a plan for a full evacuation. The shipping question was put to Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz. The answer was that the lift could be organized. The proposal went to Hitler. He rejected it. So the garrison stayed. Not because the Baltic was closed. Not because the ports were unusable. Not because the army had already been destroyed. It stayed because one man continued to believe that ground in Latvia was worth more than soldiers in Germany. Against the pocket, Soviet forces launched 6 major periods of concentrated attack between October 1944 and April 1945. German veterans later called them the 6 battles of Courland. That label makes the fighting sound clean and separate. It was not. Artillery fire, patrols, raids, local attacks, and counterattacks continued between the major offensives. The numbered battles were simply the moments when Soviet artillery and armor were concentrated for a decisive attempt. The first came almost immediately after the pocket formed. The line bent. It did not break. The second sought to compress the pocket and threaten Liepaja. That port mattered more than another strip of forest because Liepaja was the main supply artery. It held. A third offensive came in December. A fourth followed in January, pressing toward Liepaja and Saldus while Germany was simultaneously removing 7 divisions by sea. A fifth came in February. The sixth ran through March into early April. None split the pocket. None collapsed the 2 German armies. Positions changed hands. The perimeter tightened. Men and equipment were lost. But the front remained continuous. The reason was not mystery. It was terrain, defensive depth, and the simple geometry of a peninsula. The Red Army had no open flank to exploit. It had to attack through prepared ground again and again. The cost of those attacks was severe. For the period from February 16 to May 8 alone, Soviet records list 30,501 irrecoverable losses and 130,447 medical losses. A total of 160,948 casualties in less than 3 months. That count covers only the final part of the pocket's existence. It does not include the first 4 major offensives. But the Soviet purpose was not simply to capture Latvian ground. Moscow understood the same fact German commanders did. If nearly 200,000 troops escaped by sea, they could reappear in East Prussia, Pomerania, or on the approaches to Berlin. The Soviet attacks kept the garrison fixed in place. Even when the front could not be broken, the army inside it could be prevented from leaving. That was enough. By winter, Soviet strategy began to change. Important formations were withdrawn from Courland and sent toward the main fronts. Later attacks increasingly resembled a blockade backed by periodic pressure. The pocket had become strategically useful precisely because it was strategically useless to Germany. It consumed German shipping, ammunition, fuel, food, and men. It required no Soviet breakthrough to neutralize. The army inside could remain intact and still contribute almost nothing to the war. Supply moved by water for all 211 days. Liepāja and Ventspils received ammunition, fuel, rations, and replacements. Wounded men left on returning ships. The sea route kept the pocket alive. It also made the refusal to evacuate harder to defend. Every supply ship demonstrated access. Every hospital ship demonstrated movement. Every division removed in January demonstrated capacity. The system was already carrying men out. It was simply not allowed to carry all of them. In March, while the German state was collapsing, Hitler authorized a special cuff title for soldiers who had served in Courland. It was the last German military award created during the war. Distribution began in late April. Berlin would fall before many men had time to receive it. The symbolism was almost perfect. The regime could still manufacture an emblem for endurance. It could not manufacture a reason for that endurance to continue. On April 30, Hitler killed himself in Berlin. On May 2, the capital's garrison surrendered. General Helmuth Weidling signed the order and turned the city over to the Soviet command. In Courland, nothing changed. The 16th and 18th Armies remained in their trenches. They still held a continuous front. They still had artillery. They still had command structures. They were still fighting on May 3 and May 4 and May 5. For 6 days after Berlin fell, an intact German army group continued active operations on the Baltic coast. Then, on May 7, Dönitz ordered General Karl Hilpert to surrender Army Group Courland. Hilpert opened contact with Marshal Leonid Govorov of the Leningrad Front. The ceasefire was set. At 11 o'clock on the night of May 8, the guns went silent. The order did not reach every isolated unit immediately. Some troops received it later. Small groups still tried to reach the coast, but the army group as a formed command stopped fighting. Soviet troops collected the prisoners over the following days. The final count used in modern scholarship was 189,112, 42 generals, 8,038 officers, 181,032 enlisted men. Roughly 14,000 Latvians surrendered alongside them. This was not a shattered column caught during a rout. It was the mass surrender of 2 armies still holding their assigned line. That does not make Army Group Courland the last German army group to surrender. That claim is repeated often, and it is wrong. Army Group Center in Czechoslovakia capitulated later, during the final phase of the Prague offensive. The real claim needs no exaggeration. Courland was still fighting 6 days after Berlin fell. It surrendered because the war ended, not because Soviet forces had broken its front, and that is exactly why its survival was so empty. The prisoners went east. Many were held first in camps before being moved deeper into the Soviet Union. Most survivors returned only in the early 1950s. The last large group came home in 1955, a decade after the surrender. Karl Hilpert did not return. He died in Soviet custody in Moscow in 1947. 10 years of captivity followed a campaign that bought Germany nothing. The Type XXX-1 submarine program never restored the Battle of the Atlantic. The training waters did not produce the strategic reversal Hitler imagined. The Soviet armies around Courland were not the armies that captured Berlin. German territory was overrun while approximately 200,000 trained troops defended a peninsula no viable plan required. The evacuation route existed. The ports existed. The shipping existed. Memel proved the order could be given. 7 evacuated divisions proved the mechanism worked. Vietinghoff's proposal proved German commanders understood the alternative. The Red Army never had to destroy Army Group Courland to remove it from the war. Hitler had already done that. Courland was not lost because Germany could not evacuate it. It was lost because Hitler would not.